Thank you for joining us. This is Live with Miami's Community News, and I'm Michael Miller. We have two very special guests today, and one is Brittany Benjamin with NAMI and Saliyha.
Saliyha,
Oh my
yes.
goodness, Webb. All right, let's talk about NAMI. Tell us about NAMI and how you're saving lives. We'll start with you.
Okay, well, that's a big question. That's a
Yes.
lot of pressure. So I'll introduce myself first. My name is Brittany Benjamin. I'm the support programs manager at NAMI Miami-Dade. So I oversee our helpline, our support groups, and our peer and family mentoring program. So I work closely with Saliyha. She does the education part of it, and she'll go into her whole spiel in a minute. But I think one of the ways that we're definitely helping help save lives in the mental health community is by offering all the resources that we give. So part of that is support, advocacy, and education.
Saliyha, how do people find you so that when they're right on the verge of, I think I need some help, how does that door open so they'll feel comfortable enough to calling you?
Awesome. I think that's a great question. So at NAMI, we really try to meet people where they're at. So there's not one specific way that people can find us. So with Brittany and the support programs, you can call our helpline, you can join our support groups, and that's usually where we'll see a lot of people come in when they're curious. You know, they'll Google mental health, and then we'll pop up and they'll give us a call, and that's great because we can provide them with all the resources that they might need.
I think we have something on the screen right now, which is
Yes.
about the support group. All right, so
Yes.
let's leave it up there for a few more seconds, and after that, let's do the website. So if somebody's really got a real problem, they recognize it, what do you suggest they do?
We suggest that they call our helpline.
Okay.
We suggest they call our helpline and they talk to two. Our helpline is led by peers who have lived experience, so they have been through similar experiences that people who call have gone through. So I think that's definitely the gateway to all of our programs. Whenever people call, we offer them everything that we have, and we explain to them, you know, how important it is to seek help and to gain that support. And part of that is through our support groups, our mentoring program, the education. I think, you know, before joining the support groups and joining mentoring, a big part of it is education, right? And that's a lot of what Saliyha does so well is doing these presentations that teach people all about mental health and the stigma behind mental health and how we could break that.
We know when Michael Phelps and then Simone Biles said, hey, listen, I need to take some time off. That is so much different than it was 30 and 40 years ago. Before it was hidden. And I come from a medical background. I said, so why is it it's okay for a broken arm, but not for a broken heart? And that you have to be embarrassed about that. But let's talk about NAMI overall. Tell us about the big organization about NAMI.
So NAMI is a national organization. There are over 700 state and local affiliates. So you can find a NAMI anywhere in the country, either at the state level or somewhere locally in your county or in your city. And we're all grassroots, right? It's the largest grassroots organization in the country dealing with mental health. So like Brittany said, it's that peer-to-peer that really separates us and makes us different. So all the programs are different depending on where the NAMI is located so that it can meet the needs of the community. So here at the Miami-Dade affiliate, we really focus on getting feedback from our community, seeing what they need, connecting with our community partners. And mental health is everywhere, right? So that's not just the clinicians or the clinics that we talk to, but it could be the schools, it could be other community organizations like the churches, just anywhere where we can reach people in their communities, and we provide them with our programs, but also just trying again to meet them where they're at and just let them know that they're not alone in what they're dealing with and that there are resources out there.
Well, I'm glad you are not alone. I just told you the story and I'm going to tell it again. Susan was here about 3 years ago, and she said to me, I like my son, who had an episode a few years before, to come in, he'd like to sing a song. So a couple of weeks later, Susan's sitting here. Her son is sitting there. He takes out his guitar and he starts singing, You Are Not Alone. I just couldn't handle it. I was crying out of control, and Susan was there. And as you said earlier, I was imagining him walking down Biscayne Boulevard, no shoes, no shirts, And I don't know from a factual point that that's what happened, but chances are it was something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so what it did for me is to be able to say, here's somebody that had a breakdown, and here he is functional, right? If I remember right, he went and got his master's from a local school,
Mhm.
right? And he's involved in this
Yeah,
arena.
he still facilitates with us. He still does our QPR presentations. He's still very involved. He still sings at a lot of our events, and so he brings the guitar, and he's still an inspiration.
So often people think that they're at the end of their rope. The reality is there are plenty of examples of people being able to overcome some of those challenges. Tell us what effect the COVID had in the isolation. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, COVID had a huge effect on mental health. Like you said, when people are isolated, they don't have that community. It takes a toll on your mental health. So, you know, we're slowly working towards having more in-person events, in-person support groups, in-person presentations, because we know how important it is to be around one another because of what happened with COVID and how isolation is the worst thing you could possibly do for your mental health.
So even if you weren't physically isolated from other people, people were wearing masks. And by virtue of that, you were isolated. There's some
Mhm.
people I didn't even recognize when they took
Yeah.
off their mask.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, who
Yeah.
are you? And so we know there was one lady about 3 years ago. She was having some problems. She took her young child and threw him into a canal. Somebody saw the child struggling, rescued the kid, gave it back to the mother because they didn't realize that a couple
Mhm.
blocks later she'd throw him in.
I think I remember that
It's
situation.
devastating stuff. The trauma that she was going through that at that point had sort of given up. And the child, if I remember right, was
Mhm.
autistic. I think there was a challenge with that.
Mm-hmm.
So, why don't you tell us how you became involved with NAMI?
Well, I got involved with NAMI first. When I was finishing up my master's in mental health counseling, I needed a part-time job. So I saw the peer mentoring program open or to become a peer mentor on Indeed. And so I applied and I did that part-time while I did my internship for school. And I fell in love with NAMI and all that it had to offer. And so once I graduated school, I left for a couple months, but missed it so much. And they opened up this manager position. And so I came back. So I've been here about 2 years now. So yeah. No, it reeled me back in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about yourself?
So I started here at NAMI about a little over 2 years ago. I saw, like Brittany on Indeed, a posting for the Ending the Silence presentation. And I was at a point where I was looking for a new job and just trying to figure out, my direction in my career. And I had done a program before that was really emphasizing the importance of using your voice. And that was something I was really nervous and unsure about. So seeing this listings felt like, this is probably the thing for me to do because I have my own experience with my mental health. And if I could talk to students about what I went through and give them the tools and encouragement that I didn't feel like I had growing up, I thought that would be really powerful, a great way to share that experience.
So there's going to be a great experience on May 10th. Tell us about that.
Yes, our walk is coming up. It's actually
The
this
big walk.
Saturday, our biggest
In a couple
event.
days from today.
Yes, our biggest event. It'll be this Saturday, May 10th at 8 o'clock, 8 a.m. At Lone Depot Park, which we had it there a couple years ago, and it was wonderful. And you'll get to be in a space full of other people who have that lived experience. It's safe, and you'll be surrounded by community partners, be able to network, be able to get that extra support, and we'll be there, and it'll be awesome. It's a 5K, so we'll have a shorter option also for anybody who doesn't want to do that whole walk. But yeah, it's going to be a wonderful time, and we hope that as many people can join as possible.
So when you're in a group of people that are minimally sympathetic towards the cause, minimal,
Mhm.
right? There's a certain feeling that you get when you're there and you feel that unity that you all
Mhm.
share something in common. So
Yes.
tell us about that when people come in and talk about that.
I think it's so powerful to be able to be in that space because usually we don't have those spaces, right, to really
Mhm.
talk about these things. So to walk into a space where people get it, where they've been through things and you don't have to worry about is this person going to judge me? Can I say this in a certain way? And you can just be honest about what you're feeling, because everyone else also is being honest. So we encourage people to share their stories, but in order to do that, we have to share ours first. So creating that just makes it very powerful, so you can have that connection, so you could be honest about what you're going through.
Is the application on your website for Saturday?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So
Alex, could you put that up? So let's talk about when somebody is there, they come up to you, and you know they're hurting, and they want to tell somebody, because we know when you tell somebody, right, that you just feel better about it. How would you encourage somebody to open up and to be able to share their story?
You know, at NAMI, a big part of what we do is support. So I think that through our lived experience and through our empathy and compassion for mental health, we create a safe space, and we create a space where, like Saliyha was saying, they don't feel judged. And that's a huge part of it, because I think a lot of the stigma comes from the judgment and feeling like, okay, people aren't going to understand me. So I think as long as we, you know, if somebody were to come up to me, I'd listen. A big part of it is listening, you know, asking questions, being present, and letting them know that, you know, they have us here for them when they're ready and when they need.
So often, when in the years ago, I'm a few years older than you guys, it would be like, oh, no, you can't say that you're having a hard time. You can't say that you're having whatever it happens to be. You got to like tough it out, you know, just go get them, go back to work. You can do it. But that's not the case. Sometimes people just need to pause and take hold of what they're doing. So tell us about some experiences when people tell you. Tell us about what that does for you, right? And then about what it does for them.
Yeah, so one thing we emphasize when we do our presentations is you have to feel your feelings. So I love that you brought that up. It doesn't just go away, right? If you ignore it, or if you're just like toughen up, it actually gets worse. So we emphasize that fact. We'll share like stories, our own personal stories. So something that I work on is like being angry and being comfortable with that feeling of anger. But anger can be a powerful tool. So sharing those stories and letting them know, like, there are other ways. You're not your feelings, right? You just have to feel them. They're signals. And having those very honest conversations with them like that is very powerful in sharing those examples. And then they're more encouraged to share their experiences with us. So we'll get a lot of questions from the students all the time about like, you know, this is the situation that I'm going through now. What do I do? Is this good or is this bad? How do I act in this?
You know, so often I hear, try to get a little more comfortable with being uncomfortable, and to be able to admit it and to move forward. I used to be a registered nurse. I remember working in Jackson Memorial Hospital psychiatric unit in the early 70s. And I was seeing a therapist, and I said, you know, Doc, I said, the only difference between me and them is I have the keys. And he said to me, sometimes, Michael, that is the only difference, just right there, right? And so sometimes people are really embarrassed about that. But if we have some physical problem, no, we have no problem with that. So what is used by NAMI to get people to feel comfortable enough so that if they want to share their story, they can?
Well, that's why things like our walk is so important. You know, it's an open space for people to come to share their story, to feel heard, to be seen. Like we mentioned before, that judgment-free space. So I think that, you know, having that as a part of it. Also, our ETS presentations, our QPR presentation, which is our suicide prevention presentation, it really gives people the opportunity to learn more about mental health and really, you know, figure out for themselves, you know, what's best for them. And getting that education is really, I think, the gateway to all of our other programs and to support.
So do you do programs in the schools, and tell us about those?
Yes, so we do our Ending the Silence presentation in the schools. This is a program that's our early intervention and prevention program. So we talk about mental health in general, right? Because it's a really introductory program. It is led by a lead presenter who shares their own experience, either with their own mental health or that of a family member that had a mental health challenge that they helped them through. And we talk about the statistics. We just talk about how common it is. We all have mental health, right? So usually conversations around mental health are negative, but just emphasizing that we all have mental health, just like we all have physical health, it's all medical. So we have to start talking about it in that way. And a lot through that, we share our own lived experiences. We go through the warning signs of mental health challenges. What are things to look out for? Because a lot of time the students don't know, especially in like those ages like middle school and high school when they're going through so many other transitions and everything's already so confusing for them.
And so we look at the mourning process, and the mourning process in 2020, whatever year it was when COVID first said, there was a mourning process. What happened? What happened to my stuff? It's all gone. And then all of a sudden, over a couple year period, is it safe to come outside? And having that burden on little kids, and then the parents, it's devastating. So during that time, I had somebody come and give me a manicure. My wife got so upset at me, she locked me out of the house. Locked me out.
Yeah.
Because she said to me, you don't care enough about me. Why are you doing that? So everybody processed it differently. And even as of a year ago, you could see people, they were very hesitant, but we see so many people now are getting together, and we see there's more meetings, and not that it's a thing of the past, but it's slowly slipping away. But there were high schools and colleges that did not have the traditional ceremony for which those kids are mourning that loss. So how do you help students with that? Hey, I thought I was going to walk the stage, or I was going to have a graduation. Did some of the kids tell you about this, and what is it they say?
Yeah, I think a big part of it is, what was so hard probably during that time was that loss of community and that loss of being around people who graduated also. And so I think that anybody who struggled with that, just like any other mental health situation or condition that they may have, because that's a feeling of loss, I could imagine. And it's really important to find that support. And that's why a lot of things turn to online. For example, our support groups. So a lot of our support groups are still virtual because it gives people that opportunity to join from all over. So we have people who facilitate with us from West Palm, from Broward, and it's a big deal to still have those virtual opportunities so that people from all over can still have a place to get that support.
And let's talk on to the event. The run was coming up on Saturday. Do you see people like hugging each other that they haven't seen each other since whenever it was? What is that like for you when you see them hugging and crying and whatever they might be thinking? Tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's truly an emotional event. Even our staff too. We'll have stories of them running into people that they hadn't seen from elementary school, and it's such a phenomenal thing to witness, and it is very inspiring because we're trying to create the space, right, for people to feel comfortable. So I think it really just adds to what we're all kind of experiencing in that moment. And a reminder, right, that we're all going through a lot of the same things, even if we don't talk about it. So to see these people from all walks of your life that have come together in this moment.
And thank you for that. We know in the last couple of years there's been a big movement to try to destigmatize the challenge. And now there's a national hotline number. Tell us what that number is.
Yeah, so NAMI is a national organization. So NAMI has a national line as well as a adolescent line, teen and adolescents. And we actually have our own helpline at NAMI Miami. So it's open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. We will have it on the screen at some point, and you could also see it on our website. So yeah, that's people could come.
Coming up?
Yes, 665-2540.
Okay,
yes.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Alex, thank you.
Yeah, so if anyone, yes, thank you. So if anyone needs any extra resources or somebody to talk to, it's set up like a warm line. I do want to add that none of our programs are clinical and that we're all peer-led. We all have lived experience. So you're going to be calling and talking to somebody who has been there. And so you're going to gain that insight from someone who has been through similar things as you.
And so often when you're talking the same language, if you will, and you see the heads nodding, all right, all of a sudden you feel that closeness. The other day when we were talking about autism, and I was looking at the group of people, and I'm looking around and seeing how many heads were nodding. Yep. So mental health is a gigantic thing. And what can somebody do to sort of take their own temperature and say, how am I feeling about this? You have some education in this.
How am I feeling about this? Yeah. Well, I think kind of how I mentioned before, that education is so important. And that's a lot of what Saliyha does is teaching the kids from an early age. You know, it's important to know earlier on how to better cope and how to better take care of yourself and how to know, like, okay, is this a mental health, crisis? Is this a mental health situation? Is this a physical health crisis? And so that education is so important, and that's what ETS does. And we teach the kids in schools how important it is to end the stigma behind mental health and to know when to ask for help, to know when to go to an adult, to know when to seek those resources that they need.
So what specifically can we do, I mean, I include us in that, to help reduce the stigma of seeking mental health care?
Yeah. I think it really starts with us, each individual person. When I do these presentations, I remind the kids, I'm not asking you to save the world, right? That's not your mission. That's too big.
Mhm.
But you can start with yourself. You can start with your family, with your friend groups. So first, I think doing inventory of yourself, figuring out where you're at, develop that self-awareness, see what you can learn more about mental health. And we have to model it, right? We have to be able to practice it within ourselves and others can see that. But don't be afraid to speak up. Don't be afraid to say something. It's not going to be easy, right? We're battling a stigma that's existed for a really long time. So change takes time and it's slow, but we can do a lot to change our environments.
I think frequently of the first responders, whether it's a school teacher or a fireman or policeman, that they never know what's next.
Yeah.
Right. And they don't know if the next car they pull over has got a gun. Probably do. All right. You have and with policemen, they're loved half the time. Right. Firemen are always loved.
Yes.
Firemen, please, going into danger. And then at the end of the shift, they go home. Oh, everything was fine today. And so we know specifically a couple of years ago, a top level policeman here in Miami-Dade County he shot himself. And he was strong, big guy, running for office, and been in that position for years. And so sometimes when we think, well, somebody's got a problem, you don't think of that macho thing. There's a fireman not too long ago, a year or so ago, big guy, right? It got out of control, and he was successful in killing himself. And so, and they leave behind so many people, and, with that. So it's just not the little kid, right, that has a problem.
Yeah.
And so when you look at the parents of the kids that are reaching out for help, it's up to the parents to sort of figure out what's going on. So we have to listen all the time. I know you don't have grandchildren. I do, right? And I look at them. How are they doing?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And we're always checking to make sure. I wanted to share a great story with you. I used to run marathons. One day I'm running, and my partner says, "How you doing?" I said, "I'm not doing good." First time in 15 years he said that. He said, "Let's sit down." So I sit down, and I see the fireman there not too far off. I'm processing what I'm going to do. Am I going to go see the fireman? They're going to give me an IV. They're going to take me, and I'm going to be okay. This gentleman's name is Michael Rayleigh, sat with me for a half an hour. And then I got my energy back, and I finished. Go forth about 3 years, he got COVID severe. Every day I called him. And so I said to him, "Do you remember?" I told him the story. He said, "Of course I remember that." I said, "Well, I'm here." And when we can reach out and support people like that need it, means everything to me. I tell the story, I'm still emotional about it because he read it, right? Which was, first time ever. He got it, he pegged it, sit down, I'm going to stay with you.
Yeah.
And what a difference that made.
Yes.
Because who knows what I would have done, probably just lay on the ground and sort of like get stupid, right?
And sometimes it's asking that question, just how are you?
Yes.
That makes that difference in giving people that space and just listening. Yeah.
So, why don't you tell us about your background and how you got into NAMI and
Mhm.
what you like about NAMI?
Okay, so I have a bachelor's in anthropology from the University of Notre Dame. I have always been fascinated by just people and how we work and how we work together, and all of the different things that go into anthropology. And I got into NAMI again by looking at that ETS presenter position. And there was a position open for programs assistant. So I actually was able to join as a full time staff.
Mhm.
So I really got to learn a lot of the programs. And even though I had my own experience, right, I've gone to therapy myself, I felt like I was equipped and I had a lot of tools to manage my own mental health and wellness. It wasn't
Mhm.
until I found NAMI that I saw an incredible growth personally, in my own mental wellness. And that's just because of the community that it provides and the
Mhm.
education too, just knowing, that there are other people out there that are going through these things and that we can keep coming together to make a difference and to make a change.
So diverse education backgrounds.
Yes,
So there's place for
Mhm.
everybody,
Yeah.
including
absolutely.
those that directly study
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And not only that, as well, for the people who come in and volunteer for us, who are
Mhm.
program leaders, they come from, different backgrounds as well, and they really grow. They start as a facilitator, a volunteer, and then they end up working with us or a different NAMI affiliate, and you could tell how powerful NAMI is because of that. People stick around.
That's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I probably 5 years ago, I used to talk with Susan and to see she was volunteer,
Mhm.
Mhm.
and it
Yeah.
was like wonderful to see that and her commitment to improving people's health and to be able to refresh my memory, bring it out of the shadows,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so I've used that in so many other areas other than that, which I really learned it from talking with Susan.
Mhm.
And I'm sure you've had some mentors along your life.
Yeah.
I want you to think about a couple of them. And then if you don't mind, why don't you look into the blue camera and talk to them? And if they pass and you want
Ooh.
to mention them by name, hop to it.
That's
You're next.
that's yeah, that's a hard. I can't think of one specific person right now, but I think, having the support of my family and my partner and loved ones, I think that that's really what keeps me going, and that's really, not only that, NAMI, we, like Saliyha said, we forget that like where we started from and how important it is to have found NAMI in a place where everyone accepts us and there's no judgment. And so I just want to say how much I appreciate working for NAMI and finding this organization.
Thank you for sharing that. Saliyha,
Awesome.
you're on.
Okay, so of course, my family has been a huge part in mentoring me and supporting me through all of this. My mom would always remind me, and I can't say it without rolling my eyes because when I was younger, it would give me a lot of pain, but where much is given, much is required. But I would really love to thank specifically Commander Warkentine. I did ROTC in high school, and he was the man who saw me and kind of plucked me out of my like little box, my little shell, and put me in a leadership role and would give me lots of like pearls of wisdom, is what he'd say. So sometimes when I'm nervous or I'm doubting myself, I can hear him in my head going, "Go get him, kid."
So from there, you went to Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I guess something worked.
Yeah.
So let's put the web address up. Like, why don't you talk about the event again on this weekend?
Yeah, so our walk is this Saturday, May 10th at 8 a.m. at Lone Depot Park. We would love for as many people to be involved as possible. We really are trying to break the stigma surrounding mental health, and this is a huge opportunity to do that and surround ourselves and everyone with as many people who are supportive of this as possible to show that you're not alone and it's okay not to be okay, and we're here for you.
And you're going to wrap it up. So
Okay.
let's talk right there.
I will say mental health can seem like a very scary and unfamiliar thing. And the
Mhm.
walk is incredible because it's going to be a fun event. It's going to be a family friendly event. We're going to have bounce houses, batting cages. There's going to be a lot of people there that are going to be commemorating their loved ones. But it's going to be a
Mhm.
great time. It's going to be a happy time. So, we can go through all of this stuff. We have these challenges, but we can still live very happy and fruitful and fulfilling lives. And we can do that together in community. So if you're looking for that community, I hope to see you guys out there on May 10th at Lone Depot.
And if people want a hug or two, I'll bet there'll be some over there. Let's look into the red camera. Folks, remember, take care of yourselves and your family, and tell somebody that you love them. Have a great day. Thanks for joining us.